Countdown to a high-stakes showdown. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump busy preparing for their first face-off, a presidential debate with so much on the line. Plus, the first New York fire chief on the scene on September 11th talks to us about that dark day and ordering firefighters into the burning buildings, including his own brother.
They have reserved seats somewhere along one of the baselines. So they sat when they were children and cheered their heroes. And they'll watch the game. And it'll be as if they'd dipped themselves in magic waters. The memories will be so thick they'll have to brush them away from their faces.
And the death of a legend, more than a legend. James Earl Jones, the award-winning actor with the unmistakable voice. Tonight, his iconic voice and personality has fallen silent.
From ABC-7 New York, this is Eyewitness News Extra Time.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Eyewitness News Extra Time. I'm Bill Ritter. We're going to begin with the race for the White House, and it would not be hyperbole to say that tomorrow's debate between Vice President Harris and former President Trump in Philadelphia could be the most consequential night of this campaign. Ms. Harris has been on the top of the ticket for just 50 days. A large slice of the American public is still asking what she stands for. Mr. Trump is about to participate in a record 7th general election presidential debate. A large slice of the American public is not asking what he stands for. People know, and know he's always got a wild card when he's on the stage. You want to talk about a must-see television? Eyewitness News anchor Sade Bannernois at the debate site in Philadelphia.
Bill, we are here in Philadelphia where in just 28 hours, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump will come face to face for the very first time in what can only be described as the most consequential moment of this abbreviated campaign.
Are you ready, Madam Vice President?
Ready. Vice President Harris off the campaign trail, hunkered down for several days of intense debate preps.
Is anybody going to be watching?
Former President Trump, on the other hand, continuing to campaign, holding informal policy sessions with advisors in between appearances. Two different approaches from two different candidates who are both hoping that tomorrow's debate will tip the balance in what is an extremely tight race. A new New York Times Siena poll reaffirming that fact. 28% of likely voters say they need to learn more about Ms. Harris. Only 9% said the same about Mr. Trump. After all, this will be Trump's 7th presidential debate. And in a radio interview recorded last week and released today, Harris said she knows the former president's playbook.
There's no floor for him in terms of how low he will go. And we should be prepared for that. We should be prepared for the fact that he is not burdened by telling the truth. And we should be prepared for the fact that he is probably going to speak a lot of untruths.
For his part, Trump tried to temper expectations during a weekend rally in Wisconsin.
If I destroy her in the debate, they'll say, Trump suffered a humiliating defeat tonight.
And both Trump and Harris will be traveling to Philadelphia in the coming hours. We, of course, are already here. And coming up at 5:30, we're going to take you around town talking to people about what they want to hear on debate night. Reporting outside the National Constitution Center, I'm Sade Bannernois, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Just to do the right thing on the time, it is 6:34, just for the record. Joining us with more and some analysis is Josh Dar. Is that right, Josh? Am I calling your last name properly? Josh Dar. My mother's name was Dar, as in Darlene, and so yeah, I have a bond with you immediately. Professor of Political Communication at Syracuse University. Professor Dar, thank you for joining us. You saw some of those stats right now. People know who Donald Trump is. He's got his backers, no question about it. I don't think they're going anywhere. Most people don't know as much about Kamala Harris as she would like them to have. What's the goal of each person tomorrow night?
They have very different goals based on their very different places in history. Yeah. We've got, on one hand, the 3rd general election campaign with Donald Trump. Most people don't get 3. On the other hand, there was no primary season for Vice President Harris. And so she's got a much steeper task than usual to reintroduce herself as a presidential candidate to the American people.
Much debate about whether to have the microphones open or not. They had it so that now no one has their microphones open unless they're being spoken to and asked a question. That is going to, maybe a lot of people think, help President Trump, because otherwise he would be talking as he has in the other debates with an open mic, and he wants to do that.
I think you're probably right. Also, the mics were closed in the debate against Biden, where Biden did so poorly. But mostly, I think the main thing that people remember in a lot of ways from her debate against then Vice President Pence was that she kept saying, I'm speaking, when he would interrupt her. And now there's not going to be that sort of interruption. So that just for that reason alone, this will be a very different debate.
And it might help Mr. Trump, because the people know that don't like him would say, well, God, he's interrupting again. And people who like him see he's interrupting, and his people that are definitely beholden to him, they like that part of it. But he's not looking for the people he's got. He's trying to look for the people he doesn't have.
That's true. Putting some guardrails on what he's able to say and when he's able to say it might help him with the people that he's trying to persuade.
All right, let's talk about, you're a professor. Let's talk about the political environment and what specific issues or maybe moments might resonate with undecided voters, because that's who they're going to be speaking at.
Sure. I think it's really going to come down to Vice President Harris being able to define herself in a way that tells the American people both that she's willing to, in a way, continue maybe some of the popular policies of the Biden administration, continue to provide a strong contrast with Trump, while at the same time breaking from some of the perhaps less popular aspects of the administration in which she currently serves. So I think she needs a moment, perhaps more than he does. I think if he avoids a distinctive debate moment, I think that might actually work in his favor. She's in a lot of ways got the taller task. She has to define herself, and a debate moment might be just the ticket for that if she can pull it off.
Mr. Trump has called Mr. Biden a crook. Mr. Trump has called the vice president not very smart, and he's prettier than she is. Is that the kind of stuff that we're going to see in the debate tomorrow night, or is he going to try to stay on message in terms of what his people, his handlers want to have happen, and that is talk about issues?
I'm not going to go on the record saying that Donald Trump will stay on message. At the same time, I think that he may try to do that, and the question is, how much will it throw Vice President Harris off of her game? Will we perhaps see, back when she was Senator Harris in the Kavanaugh hearings, her very direct, very clear line of questioning?
There. Yep.
I would not be surprised if that's the tone that she comes out with. But as always, these debates are a back and forth, and who gets to set the tone often is declared the winner.
Given Pennsylvania's significance as a battleground state, one of the 7, do you think that either candidate will try to make local issues a focal point of the debate, or will the conversation stay more up here on a national level?
It is number 1 of 7. It is the most important one, I will say. I think that, I think they'll follow what the moderators are saying. If something's relevant in Pennsylvania, chances are it's relevant in Michigan and Wisconsin, and those really are the 3 most important states. But my guess is that Vice President Harris will be looking to define herself in ways that are perhaps more general than just for one state. But nobody, I would say, is going to say anything that will make Pennsylvania voters mad if they can help it.
Well, that's a good point to make indeed. Professor Josh Dar from Syracuse University, thank you for your insight and joining us tonight, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Again, ABC News is hosting tomorrow night's debate. You can watch it live on Channel 7 right here at 9 o'clock. Sade Badr-Noir, Mike Marza, and Tanya Rivero are all in Philadelphia tonight, looking for more of their coverage tomorrow on Eyewitness News. They will be there. All right, we switch gears, and let's get on to the weather. Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg with a pretty good couple of weeks coming up, it looks like.
I'm telling you, it's like a working vacation. Last week, this week, with a little interruption over the weekend with some showers. So a dry stretch with a warming trend. And then, of course, we're tracking Francine. Tomorrow is technically the peak of the hurricane season. And obviously, it's been very quiet. This is only our 6th named storm. And we had some forecasts that were talking about maybe 25 named storms. Obviously, not going to reach that. But do we have a flurry of activity starting out now? Well, right now, traffic's moving pretty well through a sunny sky and dry conditions. We're at 73, a westerly wind at 12, the humidity at 37%. Today's high 75. So yesterday 69. That was the coolest high for a sub 70-degree day since May 18th. No rainfall today and none expected. There might be a couple showers to the north this evening. Rainfall for the month will stay around 1/4 inch, which is an inch below average. Our numbers are working in the low 70s in Poughkeepsie. It started at 42 there this morning and recovered nicely. That big diurnal rain range. It's also a great spark for the fall foliage process. 73 degrees in the park, 75 in Belmar. So we have a quiet week ahead, sunny and dry with a gradual warm-up. And then Francine, which is probably going to get hurricane status tonight and make landfall along the Louisiana coast sometime on Wednesday. I'll have the track in a second. The extended forecast, no rain in sight, and there's 2 summer weekends left officially, and this one's going to feel like it with some bonus beach weather. We've been watching showers that have been working through upstate New York and along the I-81 corridor. They're weakening a little bit, but a few of these showers and even a brief downpour can make it into the Catskills and into the mid-Hudson Valley as we go through late evening. It's very dry around our area, so maybe a couple of these showers as they fall apart can survive into the I-287 corridor. If there's a sprinkle in the city, it's more likely in the Bronx. Connecticut and Long Island to shower overnight, but by the time we all wake up tomorrow morning, we've got mainly clear skies and comfortable conditions in the 50s. Another day tomorrow with bright sunshine, mid-70s to upper 70s, and low humidity, and another day like it on Wednesday. So Francine has been doing an intensification process since late yesterday. See all the bright pinks here? That's all thunderstorms around the center, and it's looking rather healthy in the western Gulf of Mexico. Hurricane warnings are up along the Louisiana coast. So as it parallels the Texas coast during the day tomorrow, by the time we get to midday Wednesday, it's approaching the Louisiana coast, maybe west of Marsh Island, but just to the southeast of Lake Charles, and then headed in toward Lafayette. So it's west of New Orleans, but there could be a 4 to 7 foot storm surge there. 5 to 10 foot storm surge just near and east of the center, and 4 to 8 inches of rain. It heads inland as a post-tropical cyclone by Thursday afternoon, working through parts of Arkansas, Mississippi, and the Tennessee Valley, and some rain even goes into the Midwest. I mean, by late week, a couple of showers could actually sneak towards Chicago in a light version. 62 tonight. Patchy clouds then becoming mostly clear, but the first part of the night, even wee hours of the morning, might be a shower mainly north and west. For tomorrow at 78, lots of sunshine and low humidity, and tomorrow night down to 63, mainly clear and comfy. That is one good-looking 7 day. Sunshine across the board, upper 70s the next 2 days. We're 80 on Thursday, but 70s at the coast. Nice and warm on Friday. Add a few more clouds, but also a little bit more humidity. Just makes it feel more summery. Even these nighttime lows will feel summery, only around the upper 60s to around 70, and build more of the same into early next week. We'll see you again on Eyewitness News at 11.
Boy, your tone on that's some good-looking 7 foot. I'll tell you, man.
It's about as easy going as I'm ever going to be.
There you go.
Yep.
Thank you, Lee.
Okay.
And as we continue with Eyewitness News Extra Time, he overcame racial prejudice and a severe stutter to become a celebrated icon of stage and of screen. He is a beyond a legend. Tonight, we look back fondly on the life and legacy of James Earl Jones. A closer look tonight at legendary actor James Earl Jones. He died today. His deep, commanding voice ringing out across the galaxy as Darth Vader and roaring as Mustafa in The Lion King. And elsewhere on the silver screen, he was just bigger than life. And while his voice has fallen silent, man Osako, his impact on entertainment will resound for a long, long time. Entertainment news and reporter Joel Gargiulo looks back at his life and his incredible legacy.
This field, this game, is a part of our past, Ray.
James Earl Jones, the incomparable actor whose baritone voice and commanding presence left an indelible mark on American culture, has passed away at the age of 93. Born in Mississippi in 1931, Jones, known for that unmistakable voice, overcame a severe childhood stutter to become one of the most versatile and respected actors of his generation. His career spanned over 6 decades, triumphs on Broadway, in Hollywood, and on television. He first gained widespread recognition for his Tony Award-winning performance in The Great White Hope in 1969, a role he later reprised on film, earning an Academy Award nomination. He went on to win a second Tony for his portrayal of Troy Maxon in August Wilson's Fences. While his stage work was legendary, Jones perhaps became a household name as the voice of Darth Vader in the Star Wars franchise.
No, I am your father.
Though to another generation, he'll forever be the voice of Mufasa in Disney's The Lion King.
The sun will set on my time here.
Jones's film career included memorable roles in Dr. Strangelove, Field of Dreams and Coming to America. He had nearly 200 acting credits and was one of the rare performers with an Emmy, Oscar, Grammy, and Tony, an EGOT winner. On television, he garnered acclaim for his work in Roots and won 2 Emmy Awards in '91 for Heatwave and Gabriel's Fire. James Earl Jones's unparalleled talent, dignity, and pioneering spirit paved the way for generations of Black actors. He leaves behind a legacy that will continue to inspire and resonate for years to come.
A giant of both film and stage. In fact, back in 2022, the Court Theater was renamed to be the James Earl Jones Theater. That is where the legendary actor made his Broadway debut back in 1958. From the newsroom, Joelle Gargiulo, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
It was so profound on so many levels, and that was a profound obituary as well. As we continue with Eyewitness News Extra Time, reflecting on a dark day. As we approach September 11th, the 23rd anniversary of it, we have new information about the health of the firefighters who responded and what the issues are that they face today. We are now approaching the 23rd anniversary of the September 11th terror attacks. Many members of the New York City Fire Department are still getting sick and, in fact, are dying from 9/11 related illnesses. We have reached a rather grim milestone. More FDNY responders have now died from 9/11 related diseases than were killed on that day of the attack. The unions are now calling for continued support of the so-called Zadroga bill and other legislation which funds health care for sick survivors and first responders. There are 69 cancers registered as exposures to 9/11. The union says treatment is becoming increasingly expensive.
Since last September 11th, we have lost 28 more members of the FDNY to toxins that the members were exposed to at ground zero, bringing the number of FDNY members lost since September 11, 2001 to 370.
But the numbers don't paint the picture of how people are suffering, how people have become dependent on quality medical care, and although they're alive in life, they are not necessarily living.
370 died since the attacks. 343 died that day. A bipartisan coalition of elected officials also pushing legislation now that would make funding for the World Trade Center Health Program permanent. Last year, you'll remember, Congress had to pass a $676 million stopgap measure to make up for the shortfall. And speaking of 9/11, tonight we report the story of Joe Fifer. He was the first New York fire chief on the scene that fateful September morning in 2001 when the terrorists hijacked planes struck the Twin Towers. Joe was the one who ordered firefighters into the burning buildings, including his brother Kevin. At one point, the two brothers looked at each other on a high floor of the towers, and Kevin said to brother Joe, "I don't think we're going to make it." Kevin did not make it, one of 343 firefighters killed that morning. Wednesday will be Joe's last day as the first deputy fire commissioner. He is recovering. He's recovering. He is completely going into, a different phase of his life, leaving the FDNY for a second time. I talked to him about that tragic day 23 years ago. Joe Fifer, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here.
It's good to be with you, Bill.
You've been here a lot, and I've often wondered, what's it like for you every 9/11? What do you do? What do you think about? You have family that was involved. You were involved. All those friends of yours you were involved with.
Every 9/11, I do the same thing. I go back to ground zero, to the Memorial Plaza, and I'm there for the bells ringing at each critical moment where the planes crashed into the buildings and where the buildings collapsed. And I remember my firefighters that day and what they were doing and how they ran into the building to save people.
343 were killed that day. You were the first FDNY chief on the scene. You sent them in, you went in. Your brother went in and he didn't come out. So it's even more personal. Not that it wouldn't be personal, of course.
It's very personal. And as I remember that day, the firefighters came in quietly. And firefighters are never quiet. And they looked at me and said, "Chief, what do you want me to do?" And I told the firefighters, as I told my brother, to go up, to evacuate the building, and then regroup on the upper floors to rescue those people that were trapped by fire and smoke.
If you had it to do over again, you might do things a little differently, but you didn't know that that was possible, these towers coming down. You didn't know what had really happened and how to fight it. You did what you thought was the way to go, and everyone else thought was the best way to go too.
Yeah, throughout the world, there was never a case of an entire high-rise building collapsing. So what we thought was there might have been localized collapse on one floor, but we never thought of a 110-story building collapsing to the ground.
You think of your brother as well, I'm sure. I know you do.
Yeah.
And what do you think?
I think of the special moment we had that day in the North Tower, where he came up to me and we looked at each other, wondering if we were both going to be okay. And that was really the last time I saw my brother.
You've seen a lot of people die, but not your brother before. And I know that must be very difficult. It's hard for me to hear that. But it's forged in you forever.
It's part of who I am, seeing my brother for the last time and seeing the many firefighters for the last time as we sent them up.
This last week, you added more than 30 new names to your memory wall from 9/11. And that brings to 360 the number of FDNY members who died after 9/11, which is now greater than the number of FDNY members at the time who died at 9/11, 343. It's only going to go up higher.
Yes.
So when you did that, when your troops did that, when your friends did this, what went through your mind? And you see these people dying all the time and getting sick all the time.
When I saw that we surpassed the 343 that were killed on 9/11, and now we're up to over 360, we had to give meaning to that, or as I mentioned, a purpose. And what I asked my chiefs to do was not to ignore that hurt, but by giving it purpose, to make a change. So firefighters, after putting out the fire, they take off their air mask, and there's smoke, and they look for hidden pockets. Well, we changed that. We told our firefighters to keep on their air mask while they're looking in light smoke for extension of fire. And in doing so, we remember those that are lost post 9/11, and we remember their legacy. So even though they died from smoke and dust from the World Trade Center, now the next generation will remember to keep on their face piece when they're going into a fire, and when the fire is just light smoke, keep it on.
23 years ago, they took off their masks when they came down. Why did it take so long, and when did that start?
We've always told people to keep on the mask.
Yeah.
But what we did recently was to reinforce that. If you look at it this way, 9/11, the FDNY was forged by fire and smoke.
Yeah.
The fire collapsed the buildings. Well, the smoke also killed many of our firefighters. And I think we turned that horribleness into hope, so the next generation won't die from smoke of a collapsed building or smoke from a fire.
Joe Fifer, a hero at 9/11, a hero several years later at Superstorm Sandy, and now he retires. Wow. He bears it like everyone else does. Eyewitness News will once again broadcast the annual remembrance ceremony for victims of September 11th. My honor to once again anchor that coverage. The ceremony starts Wednesday morning, 8:25 a.m., Channel 7 Eyewitness News, and we'll be with it all morning. And it is something to watch and behold and remember. And that wraps up this edition of Eyewitness News Extra Time. We thank you for watching us tonight. I'm Bill Ritter. We're back live on Eyewitness News after Monday Night Football. Yep, the Jets are playing. We hope to see you again. Until then, have a great evening.